I believe that students should pass criterion tests. In other words, I believe that a kid ought to know how to read, and that he should be able to take a test at the end of some period and show you that he or she could read.
What was the matter with the standardized tests at that point? When you came in there and you were not in favor of those standardized tests, why not?
Well, at that time, I believe the standardized tests were culturally biased. I still do. But I know now something that I didn't know then. I know that you can teach children to overcome cultural bias. You just teach them what the test wants them to know. But we weren't doing that back then.
But back then, your feeling was that those tests were not relevant and were actually prejudicial.
Yeah, they still are.
And
they still are. You do better on those tests if you are European descent. See, because the cultural values are reinforced on the tests.
Are there specific examples that come to mind in terms of?
Sure, what's the content first? If you just read through the content of it, the content first. Second, what the stories ask you to know about them, that's second. Because the questions are inference questions. They infer. Now, you know what an inference question is. An inference question is you get your knowledge to answer it from someplace else. Okay, where are you going to get it? If it's not in the story, right, and you're supposed to infer an answer, where are you going to get this? It has to come from some kind of cultural base.
How much of the distinction?
And evaluative questions, too.
How much of the distinctions have to do with a student's class, economic class, as well as race? I mean, does it have? Well,
they interface, unfortunately, in our country. Got more black poor people than you got white poor. I'm not more, percentage-wise.
Right.
There are more poor white people than there are black people, but percentage-wise, there's a larger percentage of black people who are poor than of white people who are poor. So in that way, it has a greater impact. I mean, it interfaces. Race and class interface. You can't separate them.
So you ultimately,
although poor people do worse on standardized tests than middle-class people. Because the more you know, obviously, the more you know, the better you are. I mean, if you're living in the Appalachian Hills of Kentucky and you don't get to learn anything about anything, then you're not going to do well on these tests. I mean, school can't cover all of that, you know.
At what point you were in D.C. for?
School can cover all of that, but it takes longer.